Hi everyone, this is Vickie Verlie, the Rock and Roll Prophetess, and I'm coming at you today to do a little video about nature spirits. Now I love nature and plants, a lot of earth in my chart, and I'm very much into gardening and earth and everything. And there's definitely spirits, and plants have spirits, and then there's several categories, okay? I feel like the individual plants, especially like trees, I feel like they have a spirit. And also, there is a spirit that it's called the Devic, the Diva or the Deva, the Devic realm. There's like a sort of a master spirit, I guess you could say, that sort of guards over the whole plant. Every plant has its own Devic or Deva. It's D-E-V-A, but it's not pronounced Diva. It's like Deva or Devic realm. But anyways, there's that. And then there's also the elementals. There's the fairies that look over and tend to the plants too. So there's a lot of spirit energy in nature, and I'm very much in touch with that. Always have been, and really, I'm really into it. I want to talk first of all the Devas or the Divas. I definitely see them. I don't always see, like how I'll see them is. And if you've ever seen that face, I have that statue outside, the man with the leaf man, I feel like he's one of the Devas or the Divas, and it's like that. And I'll see that after I've been working out in the yard all day in my garden. I'll come in, and usually it's when I'm in the shower, which is, from other videos, I get a lot of good stuff in the shower, spiritual energy. And I'll see them, like, last one I saw was of the broccoli, believe it or not, the broccoli plants. I was out weeding in my garden, and I came in, and I'm just in the shower, cleaning off because I was all dirty, working in the garden. And I see the broccoli plants, and there's this face it's the face of the broccoli. It's the collective, the broccoli collective, I guess you could call it. So that's like the Devas or the Divas or the Devic realm. There's also the fairies, and fairies is such an in-depth topic, but today I'm just going to talk a little bit about the fairies who are out tending to the nature plants and everything. Now, I read this years ago, and I always do. Like, I let my yard go a little wild. I don't have everything all pruned and perfect. I like a little bit, let nature do its thing, And they say for a fairy glen that you should let it go wild, because the fairies like it, as its natural state. Now the fairies aren't really, it's not attached like the Deva or the Diva. The fairies are separate entities, and they come and they tend to the nature, and they're in touch with the nature. One time, this was before I moved to this house, the last place I lived there for 7 years, and my daughters were little. I've lived here almost 15 years. We were getting ready to move out of the old house, and in the front yard was a circle of mushrooms, which is called a fairy circle, excuse me. And I've told this to people, and they're like, oh, well, they have all this scientific, it's a specific type of fungus, blah, 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 So there is a scientific explanation to the fairy circle or the circle of mushrooms, but I'm telling you, it was magical. So we got out of the car, we were coming back, me and my daughters, they were little, and I see the fairy circle, like, oh, look, girls, it's a fairy circle. And we get down on the grass, and we're looking at it, and I'm like, oh, how cool and everything. And one of my daughters says, Mom, does fairies really exist? And just then a toad jumped out of the middle of this, and there was nothing there. There was no toad in the grass, okay? And out of nowhere, this toad jumps out of the middle of the circle of little mushrooms in our front yard. So that was so magical. That was such confirmation, that it totally was of the fairy realm. So, fairies, they're around. And I may do a whole nother video just on fairies. Now, the third thing is the plants themselves have energy, almost like a solar spirit. And I've seen that with even like my house plants. Like, I'll put a couple of plants together, and they'll start blooming and flowering, and I've even crossbred the plants, and unintentionally, the leaves will start changing to look like, sort of like the plant next to it. I've not done any grafting or anything, like they're just melding together, and then when I move them away from each other, they start failing, they're not thriving anymore. It's like they love each other. And there's that famous study where they they did the Kirlian photography on the plants and how they have auras, and even when they cut off a leaf, it still has its aura in the Kirlian photography. And they there's that famous study where they hooked the plant up to electrodes, and they had the scientists come in and kill one of the plants in the room, like break it open and bust it open, its pot and everything, and just mutilate it. And then they showed that when that person came back into the room sometime later, whatever, a day or a week later, that the other plants were fearful. Like they remembered, that's the guy that killed our brother. You know, they remember that. I had a couple of cool things happen like that when, well, another thing about the plants, like I noticed when I, like how smells. Like after I water my plants, my whole house, they give off this odor and this smell. And it's almost as if they're saying, thank you for giving me the water. Or how it smells after a rain. You know, you go out in nature and the way the plants just smell so good. So I think that's something, you know, with the plants. A couple of things that happen here with me and trees, and specifically with trees. After Hurricane Sandy, I mean, I'm not on the East Coast, but we've got some pretty, you know, damaging stuff happened around here too. And one of the things after Hurricane Sandy was my tree out front on my tree lawn was pretty messed up, and it was it belongs to the city, so I had no say about it. If it was up to me, I would have nursed it back to health, but I had no say about it. And that tree was so magical too because it was always full of mourning doves, because it had these little flowers and they would come and eat the seeds off of it. And I would always hear the mourning doves cooing and everything, and they would always be gathered in that tree right in front of my house, which was so cool. And I loved that tree. Yeah, well, anyway, so it got damaged during Hurricane Sandy, and unbeknownst to me, the city came one day to chop it down. And they're out there. I didn't even know this was happening. I hear all those, you know, the chainsaws and everything, and I look out, and the tree is like in the window shaking, and I swear it was screaming. It was like screaming, help me, stop. It was so, talk about a tree hugger, right here, I'm the tree hugger. It hurt my heart. I was just like, but there was nothing I could do to stop it. It wasn't on, the tree lawn is not my property, so there's nothing I could do. Another really crazy thing that happened with a tree years ago. Well, trees anyway. I mean, I go out, I have a willow on the back, and that thing is just the healingest thing. I go out there and I sit under it, and it heals me. You know, mother willow back there. But this thing happened years ago. I was pruning this tree because it was encroaching on my garden and shading out my garden, and so I needed to prune off the, some of the branches, of the lower branches. So I did it, and then there's these big gaping wounds there. So I don't know what came over me. I just picked up a glob of dirt on the ground and I spit in it. And believe me, I'm not a spitter. And it grosses me out when people spit in public. I like gag. It's one of my pet peeves. I don't like when people are, especially if they do that hawker noise. Ugh, I'm almost puking thinking about it. But I'm not a spitter. I don't spit under normal circumstances. But without even thinking, I picked up this dirt and I spit in it, and I put it on the wounds on the tree. And the tree was fine and everything. So this is like years later, a few years later, I'm watching, it was before, DIY Network and all this, or HGTV. It was like a PBS, it might have been like Victory Garden or something, these Saturday afternoon gardening shows, and I'm watching it. And they're talking about pruning a tree. And he says, well, what you do is you put latex paint over it to seal the wound so bugs and stuff don't get in it. And then so I'm like, oh, well, that's good to know. And then right after that, he says, the Native Americans believed they would use mud, and they believed that using your own spit and your own saliva had magical properties or healing properties, that they would always use their own spit with mud to heal the tree. That blew my mind so bad. So, I mean, it's one of two things. Either A, it's me from a past life as a Native American, which I know I have been, I've seen that, and that was just knowledge that I had from a past life, or B, that I was just communicating with the tree, the spirit of the tree, and it was, telling me what to do, just because the Native American culture is so in touch with nature and spirit and everything of the trees. Either way, it was crazy. And this was like years later till this happened. And as I said, I never spit. That is not who I am, but I just did it without even thinking. I go, oh, there's a wound in the tree. I just grab the dirt, spit on it, and put it on the tree out of nowhere. So that tree, I feel like that tree was really communicating with me, or whatever. I was in touch with the spirit of nature. Okay, so there's a lot more we can go into on this, but those are just a few things I wanted to cover. And my rock and roll quote for today is going to be from a song that I wrote, and you can look at it on my other channel. There's a video for it. It's called Nature Speaks. I wrote it maybe right around the year 2000 or late 90s. And the quote is, "There is magic all around us. Listen to the forest speak. Mystic energy abounds here. It's floating in the breeze." Okay, this is Vickie Verlie, the Rock and Roll Prophetess. Thank you for watching and liking and commenting on my videos. Thank you for donating and sharing my videos. Remember, you are love and beauty incarnate, and go hug a tree. Until next time.
What is Orgonite? Originally discovered in the 1930s by Wilhelm Reich, orgone energy, or etheric energy, is present in living things including the human body. Reich proposed that illness occurs when our etheric body is out of balance, and that positive orgone energy could realign the etheric field, thus facilitating healing and balance of one's life force, chi or prana. It has since been scientifically proven that energy called piezoelectricity, meaning electricity resulting from pressure, is created by the compression of certain materials such as quartz crystals, wood, salt, sugar, ceramics, and bones. As the resin cures in an orgonite piece, it shrinks and compresses the organic matter contained within. The energy emitted creates a positive energy generator. You really can feel the energy coming forth from these pieces. Orgonite clears the air and neutralizes negative emotions as well as electronic clutter from our high-tech devices. Each orgonite piece is lovingly hand-created using intuitive pairing of materials to enhance and raise vibration and aid in ascension and a spiritual awakening. I use materials from nature, including the bark from a sacred willow for grounding, and gold flakes to emulate the golden light basking down from the higher dimensions. Visit my Etsy shop for a wide selection of handmade orgone pieces, especially designed for spiritual growth, including heart opening, chakra alignment and activation, and more. Visit www.orgoneenergyflow.etsy.com to see more beautiful orgone pieces. And remember, you are love and beauty incarnate.